It's nighttime. It is snowy out. It is blowing wind. It is blizzarding. It is pretty miserable. But here I am. Chirp, chirp, it's your bird, Night Sparrow here. I have quite limited time, so I'm going to get right into it. This is TTJ Week 2. I have 3 games for you guys. 3 games I looked at. Technically, I did a TTS game on request. I don't think I have time for that, so we'll just go over these 3 games. I did put the notes on Discord, but I read them over and I'm like, I don't understand them, so it's kind of a disservice. All right, let's go. Let's get right into it. The first game we have today is a game between Darknekros and Fredbaldy. It's actually a short game. As you can see, there's 8 minutes left here and 3 minutes here. Let's get right into it. First note at move 13, which we have a 3rd file versus a 4th file. Very cool. And here Darknekros decides to move the silver up in response to this rook here, guarding the spots from promotion. I guess protecting this pawn too. I mean, it makes sense. But honestly, without support, this rook can't do much. Yes, it could promote here, so you should probably stop that. But even a simple silver here, if Darknekros tries to do this, try to push. Got the golden here too. These are watching that spot. Eventually, these will take the pawn back. And yes, Darknekros could go for a trade. No, I can't really because you got 2 protectors on it. So this rook is actually not much of a threat, apart from going there. It's not really a threat. You can actually just leave it alone if you want. Without support, it can't do much. Yeah, so no need to panic. The rook is there, and it can sit there, honestly. Might become a target later if the bishop ever trades. Anyways, to the next move 20. So things happen. We kick the rook, by the way, by dropping a pawn. Things happen. You actually have a pin here. Very cool. And move 20. We move the silver up here. My main note here is this silver actually serves a purpose. Yes, you're trying to make Mino. Your king's going to go eventually here. Your gold's going to go here. Good old Mino, right? But in this state here, this spot is actually very vulnerable to a bishop drop or a silver drop or something. This is an unguarded square right now. And if you look here, the bishops are kind of staring at one another. So in the future, when this rook moves and the bishops trade, once you trade the bishop could just drop here. And now this king cannot escape over here into its castle. And not only that, the bishop will become a horse. I'll take a lance. And then, you can free it via methods and stuff. But anyways, always be wary when you're making Mino Castle. If you really want to make Mino Castle, what you can do, ordering, is move the king over first. And then silver and then gold. It's the same number of moves. However, this spot will not be vulnerable. I know it kind of looks dangerous here because you have the rook staring there. We move the king first. It's in, but having that vulnerability when the bishops could be traded at any moment is something to worry about. All right, move 31 is the next one. So things happen. Eventually, the rook does move, and the bishop do get traded. Honestly, at this point, I would say Darknekros should drop a bishop there as soon as possible if it's not protected. We attack. We get dragon. Very nice. Rook. They trade. Oh yeah, because this spot is vulnerable. Oof. If only we castled a bit more. Darknekros. Trade and drop the rook again. And we lost the gold. So actually, earlier here, this was actually a fork. This is actually a rook gold fork. And in response, Darknekros create the dragon, which was too much of a threat. It was threatening this rook. So Fredbaldy moved it over. We traded. And at this point, you can actually just move the gold away or do something like a pawn to block the path. That's honestly probably the safest option because they have a rook drop coming in soon. This might not be the best option. Maybe something like this, allowing them the lance, but blocking any rook drops here might be the way to go. Unfortunately, the silver and the gold hanging is a bit too much. But yeah, something like this. So now they can't take your gold. They can still horse and take the lance, but it's not a gold. Especially since right now your king is still not castled. In fact, this king's not really castled either. It's one step into its Mino castle. I mean, it's default step. So yeah, both sides aren't really castled. It's a bit vulnerable. But at the very least, if Fredbaldy got attacked, he could escape through this little labyrinth here. While Darknekros can escape, but no, it's a rook, so it can't really escape. Yep. Next move is move 35 here. So we have the gold being taken, so now Fredbaldy is actually up a gold. And we have a dragon, and over there, and we do knight drop. I don't hate this knight drop. This is a nice knight drop. I just hate that the king can still escape. At this point here, I would say I'd recommend a bishop here instead. Cut off the king's escape route. You know, get a lance maybe if you absolutely need it. You don't really need it. And if we were to do that, and Fredbaldy does something, now this knight is a bit more powerful. Now this knight is a bit more powerful because the king can't escape this way. It's a direct threat. It's like right in your face now. So if Fredbaldy does something, and now we have the knight drop here. Now it's fine. We have actually no more ammo. But imagine we had something drop there. It'd be amazing. Yep. What did I say about that? And 7-4. Oh yeah, what's that sequence do? If you drop the bishop here. What you can do in the future, if you really want to get your bishop out too, you can always do something like this. It's kind of crazy. Well, not really. It's sacking a knight. And they can't escape anyone. This king actually has no legal moves, so they're forced to take. And now your bishop can come out somewhere safer than that and be a horse and do stuff. It's a way of indirectly controlling this lane to this diagonal. So it's a fun little tactic you do. But yeah, surrounding the king would have been a nice option there. And I have one last note at 46. I only wrote plus BX. So I'm curious what I meant by that. So yeah, we go on an attack. There's a dragon now. Gold there. Gold there. Oh, I remember now. At this point, Darknekros is just trying to escape their king. Maybe if they make it all the way there, they have salvation. But we push the pawn here. And Fredbaldy takes the pawn. Contemplates for a minute 21 seconds and takes pawn. So this king is kind of stuck here. The king can't go here, can't go here. It earlier couldn't go here. It's kind of stuck. Like, yeah, if the king moves back, here, that's no good. If the king goes over here, we have this lawnmower happening here. The lawnmower with the dragon and the gold on the back rank sort of thing. So here, actually, take the dragon. Not the dragon, take the horse. Surround this king. This king now has no legal moves here. And now you're threatening a knight drop here. Knight drop is basically mate. The king will be forced back somewhere, and that'll be mate. That's it. So that's a threat mate right there. Not so with the pawn. And in fact, it's not truly a threat mate. I mean, what you could do is also just drop a silver here too. It's getting really messy. So you can drop silver here. That's also threat mate. That's a better threat mate because dropping knight here can actually be taken by a dragon. Sack the dragon. So yeah, surrounding with the horse was much better here, especially since Darknekros doesn't really have a threat. It has a dragon, but that's not enough. You have a bishop in hand, but that's not enough. We have a 3 general castle here. We need more than just the dragon. And here, Fredbaldy had the dragon, the gold, the horse. One more piece and we're done, sort of thing. 4 pieces creates a successful attack. So yeah, taking the horse there would have sped things up much more. Oh no, what happened? Would have sped things up much more. The game ended soon after, but it could have ended even sooner. Efficiency. So my note for the game, for the players, is that a single piece is rarely enough to win. You really need to have major pieces supporting minor pieces that go in and do damage. That sort of thing. Kind of like how this dragon here is supporting this gold, which is basically controlling the entire back rank and the entire second row here. So all you need to do is now stop this king from going forward and you're done. Whereas this dragon here has no other support. Unfortunately. This king has freedom here. Ideally, this would be popped open. Yeah. This dragon's just not enough here. Not enough in this scenario. Alright, let's move on. Moving on to our next game. Our next game is Carl T55 versus Machamizu. I gotta share the screen. One moment. Hopefully my volume is loud enough. I'm trying to be quiet because the rest of my family's asleep. And I'm hoping to keep it that way. It'd be bad otherwise. Alright, we have Carl T. I scrolled too far. Carl T55 versus Machamizu. And let's see what happens. We have static rook, gold protecting, and stuff's happening. Cool. Then development happens. Carl T55, if you're going to go with static rook, and your opponent doesn't really prevent the pawn trade. This could have happened back in move 5, by the way. You can just go on ahead and trade the pawns. They're forced to take here. They can't not take, because then this becomes a token and you just won. So they have to take here. and you get an open file. They could redrop immediately, or they can redrop later. Doesn't matter. But eventually, what happens is you pull back. Now you're threatening to drop your pawn there, so now they have to redrop. And you just have an open file now. An open rook file. Where you can... And a pawn in hand, too. That's also very important, a pawn in hand. So at some point, you could always drop here, do the exchange, and attack horizontally, for example. Or you can start moving your silver up. I don't know how stack work works. And, open the bishop file. Ideally get a castle. Later on, I believe, Matcha goes ranging rook, but... Yeah, if your opponent gives you the opportunity to exchange the pawns without much danger or anything, and to have an open file, why not? That pawn honestly is in the way. Like, if that pawn is not there at the beginning of the game, you can just immediately get a dragon. So yeah, that pawn really is in the way in the early stages. Anyway, resetting again. Development happens. I didn't jot this down, but we don't need to block our own bishop. I know you're going for Yagura. Spoilers, Yagura happens. Castling happens. More castling. This gold's over there. We have the shape of Yagura over here. And we have the shape of Yagura over here. So this is great. All these pawn pushed up. This pawn's actually blocking this pawn, so this bishop's going to have a harder time getting out. It's unfortunate. This silver is kind of trying to get rid of it, but now we have the rook coming in. And this leads me to my next point here. Actually, back in move 23. So, Carl T55, you have built Yagura. Congratulations. Yagura is really, really strong against attacks that are against frontal attacks, but not so much against side attacks, which is why this castle is really good against static rook and possibly central rook, but not so much against general ranging rook. Because if your opponent's attacking here, that's a weak spot. These are weak spots. Yeah. It'll stop anything from above, but not on the side. So, you built Yagura. Is your opponent playing static rook, though? No. They're now central rook. Now, for Machamizu, it made sense to build Yagura here. Carl T55 pushed their static rook pawn twice. If they move their rook now, they've wasted two pawn pushes, and it's a weak spot, and etc., etc. It's not great. They can't change out of this, not easily. So Yagura here makes complete sense. Yagura here was a bit preemptive. It was a bit early. We did not know if Machimizu was static or not. Now, if Carl T55 looked at past records and saw that Machimizu played static rook mainly, and then Machimizu pulls out this central rook out of nowhere, then okay, fair enough. You did your research, and then the tea water came out swinging, and that happens sometimes. But Yagura Castle takes a lot of moves to build, and if you're building it and then it becomes useless, it's kind of a waste of moves. Kind of a waste. Yeah. Moving on. I'm sure you can adapt it. I'm sure some people have. I don't know Yagura Castle very well. I just know it's really good against frontal attacks, but not so much against side attacks. Hey, let's mosey on to move 28 here. So, we have here an attempt to do climb in silver here. A good attempt, honestly. And we ignore that pawn. So what happens is silver takes, your jack or castle kind of gets annoyed. A pawn drop here forces silver into a trade. Yeah, and now your pawns above your king's head are kind of pushed forward. You've lost your silver that was protecting this spot here, this key spot. And we have 2 golds, but they're kind of disconnected. That's not a good gold shape. This gold's not protecting the back gold. And this king, in the meantime, is still hanging out kind of in the middle. This was not great. So, as mentioned earlier, Jaeger Castle is great against frontal attacks. Just take the pawn. Just take that pawn. What can Carl T55 do? Sure, can we drop? And then, good old climbing silver, right? The perfect shape. Except you have 2 protectors over here alongside this pawn, making it 3. This rook is not going to break through because we have this bishop protecting the silver. Perfect system. So yeah, trust in your castle there. We're not going to break through. But displacing your generals, though, was not a good. It wasn't great. Like, it's not bad, but your silver moved all the way from a nice castle spot to an attacking spot where it got traded, and now they have the silver in hand to drop wherever. They have these 2 pawns here that are dangerous. I mean, they could just drop the pawn here, trade. Now they have a foothold there, move their rook over, sort of thing. Things could have happened. In fact, that's why it would have been very vulnerable too. They can set it up somehow. Yeah. It could have been bad. Could have been bad. Anyways, move 42 is the next one. The wins have been pretty bad. Anyways, just side note, we blundered the rook. Oof. That bishop is quite hidden in the middle of nowhere, though. Silver drop. Oh yes, we go for a check. And king goes over here, and then we go for a check. King goes up there. We have a silver, but we can't really check with it. Pawns can't check with it. Our attack stopped. Your bishop's protecting the spot. You can leave a gap and put your rook here. And now this is Tsume. This king can't block it. Pawn can't go there. It's forced to go here or here. Both of which result in mate. So that's a mate. And that's a mate. By leaving a space for your rook to be able to move forward, it allows for that mate. And it's very important. This comes up in Sume problems a lot, where rather than dropping a piece in line protected by your piece, you drop it just one before so that it has the opportunity to move into that space and promote. So notes. Carl T55. My note for you is that a castle is, no matter how strong it is, it's no good if your king is not inside of it. Your king is hanging out in the perimeter, chatting up with all the civilians, and then got attacked. Unfortunately. Like, even I mentioned earlier, this Jaeger castle is not great against horizontal attacks. It still would have been better than the king out in the open. Yeah. these three generals just kind of sat there and stared as their king just died in the corner. And Machamizu discapting. You'll see this in Sume problems as well. Don't sure if you need to be protected, great. But doing this is the difference between mating them that turn and giving them an extra turn to do something. So like in game, you put that there and you ran out of checks. And you couldn't check anymore, your opponent gets a free turn to do something. Yeah. So that's if like in this scenario, Machamizu, you weren't really in any real danger of being checkmated at some point. But in another scenario, let's say your opponent had threat mate, this would have been the difference between a win and a loss sort of thing. So yeah, something to keep in mind. Anyways, the last game I want to cover today is I just need to get to go share that one. Okay, guess I'll just close it. And share that. All right. The last game I want to go over is Sofyf versus Abelsid. All right. Move 7 is the first one here. Let's go take a look at what's happened here. We have static rook. We have Goki and central rook, maybe? Yes, and central rook as Gote. And we push this pawn here. I'm not sure if this is Joseki or if there is some sort of Joseki about this. To me, pushing central pawn against central rook kind of seems like just a bad move. Not the best move. Your king is right here. The king is in line with their rook. So what Abelsid could do is just push. And if he takes, great. Abelsid can take the bishop. And now he's threatening to capture with check. And that's not great. You kind of have to block it. Maybe you do gold or something, you do pawn. Which is fine. Now Abelsid can, for example, put a pawn here. And you could put a pawn there, you can escape. Let's say you escape, for example. And now Abelsid has this foothold here. And you're just being suffocated. Probably better moves, but yeah, something like that. So by pushing the central pawn against central rook, you're basically speeding up their attack. So now, if they push here, they can start their attack. Whereas before here, they need to push twice to initiate contact. So 1 move versus 2 moves sort of thing. And also where the conflict happens is important. So here in this scenario, if you don't push your central pawn, they have to start the battle on the square. And that could be nice for you because you could push this and move a silver up or a gold up and guard that spot. But if you push the central pawn, the conflict is now here, which is not great. They're guarding this with a bishop. This pawn backed up three attackers on this spot, whereas you have 1. And it's not easy to guard that spot either. You maybe climb your gold up there, or climb your silver up there, or open up the bishop, possibly to trade. Something like that. It's not easy to guard this spot, this 5-5 square, especially since you're static rook here. Can't even push the pawn and lift the rook sort of thing. That won't help that much. So yeah, consider that you're speeding up their attack by doing this move, which is not great. Alright, move 21 is my next spot. So things happen. Both sides actually just go on a castling developing spree sort of thing here. We build Mini Anaguma, and over here we build, I guess, Peerless Golds. In the center, everyone's just lined up. They're all ready to go. It's like a elementary school lineup. And push pawn here. They guard with bishop. We do that. What note did I have? Move 21. Oh, yes. So I've noticed that Sofyf over here, Sente, we have this setup. We have static rook here with a pawn. We have a bishop here we want to attack with. Kind of sound like this. And maybe in the future we would have had a, maybe a silver coming up to support sort of thing. If you want a faster way of doing this, you should look into Urashino or the Murata system. They do what you're trying to do here, but more efficiently, and possibly with more king safety. So I know Karo Sensei has some really good videos on Urashino. And if you're not looking for theory, you just want to try your own things and stuff, by all means go for it. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that what you're trying to do here makes me think of Urashino, something that's already been established sort of thing. So yeah, a note. A note. Alright, move 28. So things happen. We push this lance here, great. And now Gote is starting the conflict as well. We do our silver up, and we give them the foothold pawn. They're aiming directly into our base. So yeah, my note on this was to not really give them this. Don't give them that this easily. Because central rook, what they want to do, they just want to charge down the center and repeatedly drop over here. They just want to keep dropping pieces here, supported by a pawn and a rook, bishop dancing around or something. That's what they like. You're basically giving them what they want, giving them everything. What can you do in this scenario though? I mean, you can still take it, I guess. Actually, I'm tired too. It is 11:30 here, 11:30 p.m. and I have not slept that much. But yeah, we can take it. If they take with rook, great. I mean, what can we do here? It's hard to say. There's not much we can do. I mean, I would love to push this pawn here to move this silver up and kind of just build a blockade in front of the central rook here. Because I know the next move might be here, pawn here. But now, with this opening, could do something about it, maybe. Even this is not enough, to be honest. Yeah, quite dangerous. Quite dangerous. Yeah, by doing nothing, you're just giving them everything they want as well, which is not great either. Move 44. So we go on with climbing silver. Things happen. We have an edge attack going on. And then they leave it, and they attack the bishop there, which retreats. And knight jumps. This is a very nice knight jump, by the way. Knight made it all the way over here. We have all these pieces staring down here, which is great. And we kind of just ignore it here. So, on move 44 here, Abelsid decides to go with the token and do some trading. Which is not wrong. We put another pawn there. Cold backs up. It's not wrong to abandon it at this point and just do other things, but you have a beautiful foothold here. And what you really want to do is you want to jam pieces into here. This was a breakthrough, actually. Let's say you slam the silver. Takes, and it's still supported by the rook. This bishop, well, they could sack into token, but you don't really want to do that trade. Even though this bishop's kind of useless. But yeah, you would have broken through here. This was a breakthrough. In fact, this could have happened earlier. At this point, when you had the knight, pawn, and rook, you can already drop the silver here. And they have 3 things protecting it, or guarding that spot. But you have 1, 2, 3 things as well guarding that spot. And because you came first, you're forcing them to attack, sort of thing. So if this exchange happened, for example, takes, and we're back to that scenario where the bishop is just not enough to take this token. And this token is relatively close to the king. And the king can escape in there, but this token is dead center of the opponent's base. Oh, I expected that to make a rectangle, not a line. Even though this program is made for lines. Silly me. Yeah, this token, at the very least, will control a lot of space here, making it difficult for your opponent to do anything, to mount any counter attack from the base, sort of thing. All right, I'm starting to ramble. I'm getting really tired. I can feel it. My eyelids are drooping. I said drooping. Move 58. Okay. So yeah, you could have broken through here. But we don't. We grab some free pieces. Great. Do pawn drops again. What move they say? Move 58. Oh, yes. So at some point, we kind of pop a hole in there. And we drop the silver and check. And the king moves. So, the silver can't do much, unfortunately. Like, yes, it checked the king. But in terms of what it can capture, what can it do after checking the king? We can take the knight, which is what happens in the game. We take this pawn, go into that empty space, which you die immediately. You can go here, but you won't die immediately. Great. You can go here where you'll die from the king or the bishop. So there's one safe spot in this corner here. But silver kind of just went on a suicide mission. It can't do anything after checking the king. Like, yeah, you got to check in, but you're going for the win, not just to check the king. It's not a 3-check shogi sort of variant. So, in this scenario, I would have preferred, if you really wanted to check, I would have preferred using gold here. And the king escapes too. But now we can take any of these pieces. In fact, you should probably take the silver. It's traded, and now they can do stuff as well. I'm not sure what stuff, but maybe make the horse now, or drop the silver here, supported by everything. That would have been nice. But yeah, you're trading your gold for this silver. The silver was a defensive silver, so not the worst. Like, you go from gold to silver, sure. Now it's 2 silvers in hand, but they have 1 less defender. This bishop is not that great at defending, to be honest. It can't cover these orthogonal squares. And then you have the gold over here. So they give the illusion of a castle, but it's not a very strong castle. And especially with this bishop eyeing this diagonal, And this rook eyeing the center. It's like a triangle of doom over here. So yeah, move 58. Move 58. Oh, was that move 58? It was. Oh yes. The silver had no role otherwise. And in fact, they traded for that knight. And credit where credit is due, the knight gets dropped here to redo the attack, basically. It's very nice. This horse is it's great that you have a horse, but doing that first would have been amazing. All right, those are all the notes I have for this game. Sofyf, my note for you is that in the opening, your move should either be creating some offensive ability, like attacking, or building a castle. I noticed that some of your moves were a bit inefficient. So yeah, we have our static rook. We have this gold goes up here, which I don't have theory behind it, but it seems not that useful. Like sure, it's protecting the central pawn, I guess, but not that useful. And then we have half Mino, I guess. The bishop comes out, and then the gold goes over there. So I thought it was half Mino, and I thought what would happen is your bishop goes there, and your king sneaks in, or the pawn goes up here and goes this way, but it's probably not that. But yeah, this bishop move and this gold move seemed not as useful to the plan. The plan being, well, build up enough defenses and have a proper attack, I guess. But yeah, lining them up is not helping too much. Some of those moves could have been used to attack more. Some of them could have been used for better castle building. Who knows? Oh man, I'm drifting off. I'm very tired now. If I fall asleep, forgive me. And Abelsid, note the power of a pawn on the 6th row protected by a rook. So as mentioned earlier, you can break through with these things a bit earlier. Even now, you could break through. At any given point here, you could have dropped the silver here. At any point here. Instead of attacking and stuff, just go on with this silver pawn rook combination. Yeah, it's very powerful. This is actually why I really like using central rook as an attacking thing. Is rook and pawn guarding a promotion zone area is very strong, especially the king's right there. And sure, they have a rook, but they might need to sack that rook at some point to protect the king because everything's coming in. Yep, so that's what I mean by note the power of a pawn on the 6th row supported by a rook. I am near collapsing. I'm so tired. But, there's a comment. The comment is spam. Excellent. But yeah, I was trying to speed run this, but it still took 44 minutes. Oh well. I hope this is helpful to everyone involved. I hope to cover the TTS game in the future. I did like a deep dive into it. It was a requested game. I have the notes up on my channel in Discord, but seeing it visually, seeing what I'm trying to say visually is honestly probably a better way to go about it. Anyways, I hope everyone is having a good day. Good night. I hope that there's no snow in your area and there's no 80-kilometer-an-hour winds whipping around everywhere. In fact, a piece of my car on top broke because of this wind. Is that strong? It was close to whiteout conditions, not quite. It was just blizzarding this morning. Woke up to minus 17 wind chill, when 2 days ago it was plus 17. Ridiculous. That's Celsius, by the way. Ridiculous. I don't know what that would be in Fahrenheit. Cold. It would be cold in Fahrenheit. Anyways, there's no place for a tiny sparrow. I'll tell you what. Anyways, have a nice day. Good luck to everyone for whatever you're enduring or doing, I guess. I better end it.